to our second exam cram session from Data Weekender. Today we have got DP-900, Azure Data Fundamentals. All right. And Shaifali is going to be sharing her knowledge with us on how to approach and how to study and how to prepare for any of these Microsoft exams. Just to give you a little heads up about future sessions we have in January, we have an interesting one, how to think like a certification exam. So that's actually a session about what certification exams are all about, how are they formatted. A kind of good one for anybody who's new to them entirely. All right, and then in February we're doing the Power Platform fundamentals, and then in March. Oh, we might just mute someone there, please. Got you muted, thank you. And in March, we're going to have the essential guide to the new DP-500 exam, Azure Enterprise Data Analyst Associate Certificate. So that's what's coming up in the start of the new year. So hopefully you can make those sessions. This session obviously is going to be up on YouTube. I don't know why I'm saying that because it's been recorded for YouTube right now. Shaifali, I'm going to pass over to you if you want to introduce yourself and kick off, and I'll keep an eye on the chat and redirect any questions your way, okay?
Thank you so much, Mark. I hope the screen is visible to everyone.
Yeah, I can see that screen now.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for Microsoft Azure Data Fundamentals study refresher. So the exam code is DP-900, and it's one of the fundamental series of Azure exams. We have one more, which is Azure Fundamentals, and then the another one, this is domain specific. This is Azure Data Fundamentals, and there's another which is the AI. So there are three in the fundamentals stream, and yeah. So let's start. So I'll give a brief intro about myself. My name is Shaifali, and currently I'm a business analyst in the data engineering team. I work with TVNZ, that stands for Television New Zealand. I am located in Auckland, New Zealand. So my education background is again in data, and it's econometrics and statistics. And then I started my career as a data service analyst, and I have continued working in business intelligence, and now that's more of like a fancy word, data engineering. And yes, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can search me with the name if in case you're interested to catch on. So let's go ahead and start with the presentation. So before I start, I'll just be clear on that. Like, I have prepared my presentation as concise and have tried not to talk more about the content of the exam, but rather how you should prepare for this certification. Because Microsoft has been quite good at their part in giving enough resources that they have, and they have also created a learning path, so which I will be explaining you like how you should tackle it. Even if you are short in time, it's quite easy to take up this course. Even if you are working, you can take this along with your weekend study, or maybe you can always put some 1 or 2 hours to study this. Well, let's talk about the exam firstly, like what the exam is about. So mainly the exam is on the foundation of two things, as you can see, the data concepts and the Azure data services. So as it's quite evident that the exam name is data fundamentals, so definitely it asks and also encourages on understanding of the core data concepts. So when I say core data concept, it's about the types of data formats available in there, how you can store that data when you know about the format, and the types of databases. We have relational databases, and then we have non-relational databases. So these kind of fundamental concepts are very important when you are in data field, irrespective of you are in a business intelligence or you are in fields like which consumes data that is prepared by the business intelligence or data engineering team, and then you create reportings over that. So it's very important. And it's also important because until unless you know about what type of data you are dealing with, you cannot able to assess what data services you want to use. By data services, I mean I want to address here the Microsoft provides us with cloud services which you can utilize to process your data, make transformation, or any analysis that you want to make, or the storage that you want to choose from. And the next is since Microsoft have made some changes this year, they keep updating the format of exam. What they have done is now the questions are in the space of like 43 to 45, and now the exam is also quite shorter, but they still give you 1 hour to attempt the exam. But mostly candidates that have recently attempted the updated exam, they are able to finish it in the span of 15 to 25 minutes if you are quite thorough and you are clear on your answers. And the passing score is still the same, it's 700. And Microsoft usually scales any of its score in this in the scale of 1 to 1000. And it's not about percentage in here, it's a different kind of scaling that they use. So even if you have 43 questions, it doesn't mean like you will be having 100%. So your score will always be in a scale, not a percent. Yeah, so that's a brief about the exam. Let's go next. So before I go ahead, this is my perspective of like when I want to suggest anyone about how to appear for a certification exam. So I have segregated audiences or candidates who are appearing for this exam or preparing for, irrespective of even if they don't sit for exam, they just want to understand the concepts. So they are mainly in three categories. Someone like who is completely a new person, doesn't know about data and doesn't know about Azure, or not just Azure, doesn't know about the cloud concept itself. They want to switch into a new field. And then comes the second type of uh, candidate profiling, where they have a knowledge of data. Like, for example, you might be coming from a background in which you have been working on legacy systems. So, when I say legacy system, maybe you must have heard of um, systems that uses cubes, or you can say for very simple like Microsoft SQL Server. So it's a legacy, and some people have been working on that space. They have been dealing with SSRS kind of reports. So if you have heard this, this is a legacy system. So they are already aware of data, then they are working on it. But for them, cloud is something new. And then even if cloud is not new, then working on the Azure technology stack is new to them, and they are quite not familiar with the Azure concepts. And then come the last one. For example, you must have seen people who are already working in this space. They are working with Azure, or even if they are not working with Azure technology, they are working with maybe with AWS or Google Cloud Platform, some this kind of cloud technologies, and they are also aware of the data concept. So this is also one set of category who plans to appear for this exam. So why profiling is important, because it also defines like I mean how you should approach any of the certification. Maybe the person who is suggesting you might be in a category 3 and you are in category 1, so the half of the things might not be making sense to you. So that's why the profiling of a person or self assessment is really important when you approach any exam, irrespective of it's a beginner level or it's a advanced. Moving ahead, so for this DP-900, my first suggestion is like, I mean, Microsoft has given a study guide. And if you can see a small screenshot, this is the place from where we can understand about what DP-900 is. They keep this page updated with latest changes or any of the formats or lots of other resources available there. So DP-900 study guide provided by Microsoft tells you about what is the purpose of this exam, and how you should have your certification registration process, how you should have your recertification if you have already taken it. And then it also tells you about what to expect on the exam day. So it tells about some operational side of the exam as well. And the another important thing that it tells you about is the skills measure. So these are the skills which they have categorized, and these are the four functional groups in which they have divided their whole certification and how the questions are being weighted according to, uh, for example, if we see the first category is talking about the core data concepts, which is like the first level, like, and they have given highest kind of weightage to it. And then they also expect you to understand, sorry, so in the core data concepts you mainly have to understand like what is the structure of the data, what are the features of the data. And maybe if I say like what is the structure, you have structured data, semi-structured and unstructured data, so you need to understand definitions, or you need to know how those kind of data looks like, what are the examples. And then you also learn about the data storages, like as I mentioned earlier, like how you're going to store the data in different databases. And then it also talks you about the data workloads. So data workload is something, if you have heard of the terms like OLTP or OLAP, these are the kind of two workloads which we have defined as transactional workloads and analytical workloads. So in this one, they are not going deeper. They just want you to understand the basics and again the feature. And and another thing that being covered in the workloads is like how data is defined when it comes to people coming over and working in it. So it's not always like, I mean, you are just keep on learning as a student. You have to, your end goal has to be like you have to get a job or you have to work in that space. So you will be carrying a kind of role attached to you. So it could be a database administrator, it could be a data engineer, it could be data analyst, and there are lots of new roles that is specific to the organizations. It could be data insights analyst. So they are generically telling you about three of the roles, major roles, and what they do in this space. And even if they are performing any kind of task, how that task is related to the Azure data services, like what toolkit they have in their bucket that they can use. So it's kind of refreshed of like if you are thinking of being a data engineer, you're already a software engineer, or you are a on-premise engineer. So now you will be more interested in like what is the new tools that are available to me for doing my development work in the data. Then moving forward to the second one, a second functional group, that is relational data, a consideration of relational data. It's as the title says, it's focusing on the relational concepts, talking about features of relational data, and then some sub features of relational data where we have normalization, and then again, you must have heard the very popular and common language in data, that is SQL. So it's going to talk about some of the common SQL statements to give you a high level of like how they are used and what they are. And then it also going to cover about the database objects. And there will be a kind of a high level overview of what kind of Azure data services available for relational data. Like if you are dealing with relational data, how you're going to store that in what kind of database. So there is an option of Azure SQL database, and then we have Azure SQL. So these services are the cloud technologies provided by Microsoft under Azure bucket. So they will be explaining you on a very brief like what is available and how it should be. And then there is a discussion on managed instance in SQL Server as well. So they will be telling you about like how that gonna help. Because talking about managed instance, The biggest feature of cloud going into, or you can say migrating into cloud, is to get away from lots of administration of your servers, or that's how Microsoft is going to explain you, like if you are going to choose manage instance, how it's going to help you in respect to when you were in your on-premise. So there will be differences. I won't say like, I mean, every time you will be having a reduced cost reduction, you might incur higher cost of being migrated to cloud, but there are some other advantages as well. So in this one they will be covering high level, but in reality things are slightly different as well. And then going back to the same point, and like they will be covering about open source databases as well that are available under the Azure databases. Then moving forward to the third one, like working with a non-relation. As I mentioned, like there are two types of data categorization. Like the first one is relation, and the second is a non-relational. Non-relational is also very important because of the diversification of source systems that's increasing, and to make more sense with the real scenario when you work in an organization. Uh, it's not one set of data that is being stored in your data by your data team. So there could be some other tools. For example, if I tell you about a very simple one, that is Google Analytics, or maybe we have some other web analytics tool. So web analytics tools comes in the JSON formats, and these are the third party tools. These are the tools um not managed by your organization. These are not product of your organization. So these are the external sources, and they are kind of fitting in the non-relational data. So how you want to store them when you want to analyze these data and make some reports, or you want to have further insights to your databases, and you want to maybe merge this data with other internal data that you have. So this is the real scenarios that happens. So we cannot ignore non-relational data at all. So in the non-relational data, they are mostly covering on how you're going to store this data. So they are going to tell you about the capabilities of Azure storage. And you will be hearing about the terms like Azure blob storage, file storage, and table storage. These are the three storage formats that we have in Azure when we work with Azure. And then there will be a new thing that you will get to know is like the Azure Cosmos DB. This is also quite popular when it comes to non-relational data, and uh, I'm not sure, but yeah, this DB has become very popular, but it comes with lots of challenges as well. So they will be talking to you about the use cases that makes more sense, like this data is fitting to what kind of data types, or maybe the type of business you are working for, or maybe your organization is catering to different clients who have various businesses. So it might be one of the use cases over there. And then they will be talking about one feature of Azure Cosmos DB, which is the APIs. And then the last one, which is quite interesting and also very important, and if you will see, like it's not just restricted to business intelligence team or data engineering team. It is quite common among people of other insights team. Like they're also type of data team, but they consume data which is kind of transformed and in a very massaged capacity, and it's kind of clean data that are being used by those analysts. Or you can also consider data scientists also may choose to uh, have this kind of access to these tools, and they will be using this data. So in this one, they mainly covers about large scale analytics and what are the consideration of data ingestion and processing. And then they talks about again the data store for analytics data stores. And finally, they talk about the very important one, the data warehousing. So data warehouse is like Okay, you have already stored the data in your file systems that we talked about, the storage that are available. But then if anyone wants to consume data quite frequently, you want your data to be um, you can say in a model fashion, so that you can have your analysis being run on some kind of pre-prepared models, so that you can give business a better dimensions, logics or metrics, that so that they do not have to go back to their raw data, and that saves on your queries as well, because every time you cannot run query on your raw data, and that will be like more of time consuming and will be a cost to the organization. So that's where the data warehouse thing comes in. The scope of the exam is not to cover about what data warehouse is, or how it's going to help you, but how Azure services are available when it comes to data warehouse. That's one of the key important point here, because you will be learning about Azure Synapse Analytics, which has one of the capability where you can build the data warehouse. So that's why you will be learning about this one. And then there is another key feature here that they will be making you learn is like Azure Data Factory. Like you need a tool, like, or you need a process, like how you're going to ingest all these data that we are talking about, and all the systems that we are referring to. So you need a service that ingests data over there, or for transformation, or for your ETL purposes. So Azure Data Factory is one form there. The another things, two things I will be short here now. Like other two things that will be covered here is your real-time data analytics. So you might want to see this thing in two ways. Like when you are dealing with data, some of the data you might want to have, like, I mean, you can wait for it. Like, I mean, even if it comes like 3 hours late, you are okay, because it's not required at a real time level. Like you can wait for the new data to come in, and then it gets processed, transformed, and then reaches to your place from where you're doing the analysis. So that's kind of a batch processing. You will be covering that batch processing in your basic core concepts, the first module that we talked about. And then it comes, another one is the real time, in which you will be pushing in data for some of the use cases on a real time. Like there is a change now, and you will be just getting that change in your analysis in seconds. So there could be a use case, for example, especially in transportation. Anyone who is dealing with transportation, they might want to know, okay, where my, or not transportation, if we refer to logistics, you want to have your order being tracked on a real time. So that's how the background of that data works in, and you will be referring real time analytics over there. So they are referring to that as well, and they call it streaming data. And you will be learning about Azure Stream Analytics and Spark Structure Streaming. So I think they won't be getting into more detail, but yes, they will be describing all those technologies. And the last but not the least is, okay, you have dealt with lots of data. You identified some source system, you brought it inside one of the Azure services that you use, you pre-process it, you made some changes as per the business requirements, and now what, how you're going to analyze this data, and how you're going to present this analysis to your business owner. So now here comes the visualization, or you can say in the Microsoft Power BI, the very popular tool for analysis comes into the picture. So they have introduced a very brief about Microsoft Power BI, and that too, in Power BI, they are just referring to data visualization. Like, what is the capability of Power BI, and how these Power BI capabilities sync with other Azure data services. Like, for example, if you are using Azure Synapse for your whole of data warehousing, or you can say you must have heard the term ETL, in which you extract, you make some transformation, and then you load. So how you're going to use the data that's sitting in Azure Synapse Analytics and then going to visualize that in another tool that is Power BI. So they have talked about in very brief, like what are the data models available or how you can connect with the other Azure services. So this is how the skills are being measured and how they have uh, given a foundation to this exam based on these four modules. So I'm not touching every module, but just to give you a brief of like what's in there in those modules and how to deal with the those modules when you're learning and how your approach should be. So that's why if you look at the figures here, as I mentioned, there's one set that talks about data formats. Then you have your file storage. So if you focus on the file storage, so it shows you type of file storage that's available in general, irrespective of any of the cloud technology or any on premises that you're using. So when we look at the optimized file formats, so they are telling us that there are three types of formats available. So how this one you should deal with, like, I mean, conceptually, the question might come, for example, if you see the question, example question over there, they have asked, or like they can ask, like in Avro, for each record contains like what that describe the structure of the data record. So until unless you know about Avro, like what is Avro, you can't answer this. So you need to know like what are the file storages available, and then it those file storages, what subtypes of file storages are available, what are the formats, and then only you would be able to answer that. So you cannot skip the basics of data over here, or maybe you can just think of like, okay, I'll just skip into the available Azure services. So you cannot do that. So that's one of the example. And then again, if we jump into data processing, as I was mentioning you, there are two types of data processing. That's what they are covering in the module as well. So OLTP and OLAP. So again, if the question is like, what type of data storage is optimized for the analytical workloads? So for to tackle this kind of questions, you need to know firstly like what type of data storages are available, and then you when you know the data storage, then you need to know like which one is the most optimized for what purpose. So the what purpose is analytical workloads. So by looking at the analytical workloads, it should click to you like, okay, the most optimized version for this will be OLAP, not the OLTP. So this is how those definitions, those uh, differences between available processing would make sense, like when you will be tackling with the question. Then moving forward to my next suggestion is like, I mean, what we should do after downloading that study guide is Microsoft has already prepared all these four modules into a learning path. So if you can see the small screenshot, like there is a four modules that they are covering in the whole learning path. And I would say to start, this is the best place. I mean, they have their intention is to cover as much which is required in your day-to-day job as well, and also what is the expectation of this exam. And it's like I would correct myself. I won't say like it's complete for your day-to-day job, but yes, it's a good start when you are entering into data space, or if you are entering into cloud space, then at least you will have a working knowledge of like, okay, you have a system in front of you. Your organization has started using Azure, but it will start making sense. Like, okay, if they are using Azure SQL DB for something, then there must have been some decision architecturally. So this gives you a foundation of like, Why? Because you know the concepts, they tell you about what we just discussed in the like what the key things that they're assessing. So it's everything covered in here. So this is the second step that I would suggest. Like you should start with the learning path. Then moving forward, I have taken another module, which is how to work with the non-relational data in Azure. Though it's just a weightage of 15 to 20%, but I wanted to explain here few things in again like how you should approach this exam and what other resources would be required, not just the learning path will be enough. So in the non-relational data Azure, working with non-relational data in Azure, they have mainly covered, if in the learning path, they have covered only these two steps. Like, firstly, they are telling you about what are the storages available in the non-relational data. And then in the second one, they just talk about like the fundamentals of Azure Cosmos DB. And in the Cosmos DB, they are just only giving you high level knowledge of what is Azure Cosmos DB and what are the APIs available for that. But there could be a, a chance, and definitely there would be chance in which they will want you to know something beyond the learning path. So there is a question like, if you can read in there, I can read for you. So if you're working as a data associate in an organization and your client has accomplished a task with Azure Cosmos DB account and they wants to delete it. So you have to identify right sequences of steps to clean up Azure Cosmos DB account. How you will arrange those steps in the right sequence. So they have given you 4 steps and you need to put this in the right queue. So of course the answer is visible here, but how are you going to um, answer this question? Because the learning path is not telling you about how you have at first place created Azure Cosmos DB account. So here you have to add in more resources to your exam preparation. And Microsoft has already done this work as well. Like, I mean, they are very good in their documentation. And they have, if you click on documentation and if you randomly search about what topic you want to read more about or you want to understand on. For example, I search for Cosmos DB, how to create a Cosmos DB account, and then how to create delete this as well. Of course, for the delete, it's not available, but then it's they have covered everything in the creation section. So this is the place where I got to know about Azure Cosmos DB. So for them, for Microsoft, they have nested information in places. It just completely dependent on us what we want to learn. They have given us the learning path, but then in that learning path, which topic do we think or it could be completely dependent on our interest as well. Like we want to know more about Cosmos DB, or maybe we want to know about data warehousing in general. So we have to dig in more on what documents is available. So this is the place where you can find their documentation for everything that's related in that learning path. So I would suggest here, of course, you can prioritize on reading about the topics it as per the weightage. If, for example, module one is 20 to 25%, then I would suggest like, for example, it is covering, if it's covering transactional data processing, I would suggest you should know about OLTP in detail, even if it's given, it's quite enough detail in the learning part, but if you are more interested and you have a plan to work in this space in coming months or after, just not the goal is for clear the exam, then you can definitely look at OLTP or transactional data processing as a keyword for Azure documentation. Similarly, for this one, this is one of the example I wanted to show you. Like, what should be your next step? So the step three should be to refer your Azure documentation. So this is how the Azure documentation look like. You can browse on n number of uh, related information in there, and they have categorize it into databases, and then you can see on the right hand side, like they have talked about analytics and containers, though everything is not in the scope of this exam, but whatever matches what we are learning in our module, we should pick that from this category. For example, you can see like the Azure Cosmos DB is available there, and then they are covering MySQL, MariaDB, and PostgreSQL as well. But that's kind of high level, and they have given due weightage to Cosmos DB by making a subcategory in that module. So definitely you have to look at things like that, like how they have given weightage to anything in that learning path. And also the study guide tells you like which one is the higher weighted mod in the module. Now moving forward, definitely this step 4 is quite known. Like, I mean, we should attempt sample questions, or you call it sample, or you can choose, like, I mean, if someone has given you set of questions for DP-900, or if you plan, you can buy as well. I have no recommendation to spend any money on this exam, or like buying a course or buying a sample questions, because a lot of resources are available, and even if we don't dig in into Google, we can do well with what is available in the Microsoft, because Microsoft resources should be your first go to, because you are firstly appearing for their exam. Second thing, Microsoft is quite comprehensive when they give their documentation, and they have planned their learning paths quite well, and they are not sufficient, but yes, they are near to sufficient. And then fourth point is like why you should refer to Microsoft at first. Go to point is you are studying about, or you're going to use Microsoft technology if you are referring to this exam. So then there could not be any other best resource area. Of course, you can Google on YouTube if you don't have time. If you are not a person who wants to read, or time is a kind of crunch for you, then definitely you can watch. Lots of YouTube videos are available. Some people are talking about the whole course in 2 hours. You can do that, but it's completely up to you what approach you want to follow. That's always an option. Google is always an option with the ample resources. But my recommendation would not be to spend any money on buying a course for this, or a sample paper. So if you can see, there are lots of free online uh, exams available. I myself used WizLab one, and for the free sample, they also have a paid version. But for the free sample, they have what's available is like 20 to 25 questions, which is, I would say, far enough. When I attempted my exam a long time back, so they have this as a resource, and they have given the answers quite well explained. And the best thing about this website is they are also giving you links to the resources. Like if they have given an answer, they gave the explanation, but from where we can find that exact answer and what topic that question refer to. So they have given that as a link, so you can try this. Similarly, there must be others as well, but I think I tried only this one, so that's why I just gave that as an option here. Then definitely Microsoft did not forget to create any sample questions for this exam. So when I attended the exam, I did not do Microsoft sample question, because I was not aware of it that time. And maybe I think I missed it. And I was of intention, because their study guide shows like we have to buy the exam from them. But then instead of look, I mean, since I look at that, so I didn't click further. But initially they had some of the sample questions available, and they are also explaining you what would be the question types. Like it will be a sentence completion, it will be a matching question, or it will be like a find the correct order or something like that. So you can try that as well. But definitely attempting a sample question is very important, because this is the best assessment that you can get to know. I mean, it's a very common advice, like, I mean, until unless you know what you're learning. And it also tells you, even if you haven't learned anything, you can put this step as a first step. I mean, if you're planning to take the exam in coming 1 month, you can do this exam today itself or maybe tomorrow. Like at least you will have your first level assessment, like what you know. And this is the best approach as well. Like, I mean, if you have time, definitely you can try it out and you will know like where are my loopholes, or where I need improvement, or do I even know anything about this uh, topic at all. Then the last step. This one is very, very important and would be very good add-on. But I put it as a last step because not everyone will be having a viable option from this. I mean, this is not a viable option for everyone, I would say. Uh, so this is Microsoft Virtual Training Day. I attended this. So what Microsoft has done is so they have a set of live training, and you first have to register for this training day. And the thing is, like, they run this virtual training day on different time zones. And so the thing is, like, if it suits your time zone, and if even if it suits your time zone, it's very important that does it suits the time you want to attend this training. And this is a training which is not recorded at all, but they provide you with resources. Again, they refer to the study guide. And what they have done is um, they have used the same learning path, but they have added a lot of extra resources over it. And the trainer tells you everything in detail. And it's like what I remember is like it's a 4 to 5 hours of one day, which is into what they have extended into 2 days. So they're like 2 days mostly. This is the way they have covered data fundamentals, issue fundamentals, and AI as well. And another advantage of attempting this virtual training day is when I attended this, they have a encouragement for people to come over and attend this, because they want, because Microsoft is on a spree of like imparting Microsoft Azure knowledge base to lots of people. So what they are doing is like, by this virtual training day, if you are attending this, not just registering, you have to attend as well. So you are eligible to get a free voucher as well for the exam for which you are attempting this training. So if you are attending the data fundamentals, you need not to pay for sitting for the exam. You can always get that voucher, and there is some validity for that voucher. So, so my experience is like, I did this training. I got a free voucher since I completed a training. I attended both the days, and then I learn with the same approach that I have just explained you, and then I sat for my exam. So I need not had to pay as well. So so this vouchers are available only for fundamental exams, not for specialized exam. So I think this thing should be going on now. I haven't checked that, but definitely you should check out. So you can see the screenshot. You can type in virtual training days. And if you can see, I took the screenshot yesterday. So there is one Azure fundamentals running, and it's gonna come on December 18 or 19, I guess. If it suits your time zone, then do it. And for data fundamentals, they don't have anything scheduled, but they are coming soon. So you can see you can always keep an eye on this and can register. And also can look out if you will be getting the free voucher, then definitely it will be a good help and will save you those 99 USD. Well, so the last key takeaways that I would like to give for this exam before we come to the end of the presentation is you need to focus on feature of Azure services, because if you read the study guide, you have to download that. You if you see that everywhere they are just referring to describe features. So the whole foundation of the exam is on features of the Azure services, and definitely they are also describing data concepts. But the focus is on the feature of like what you're reading. They are not asking you to do any extraordinary next step on it, but yeah, what it is, how it is used, or what will be your approach if you are on the job, your organization is having some use case. So firstly, you need to be aware. Okay, first this Azure service is available, and then I have this kind of data format, or I have this use case for my data, or my business users need this. Then how I'm going to choose among the Azure services, or what will be my approach if I'm a data engineer, if I'm a database administrator or an analyst. So that's why you need to be aware of the features at first place, even if you advance in this space. The question types are mainly matching type, yes or no, or multiple choice. So the fill in the blanks kind of questions are very few. So that's why it's quite advantageous. When you have multiple choice, you even if you are not able to remember key features or anything about any concept, you will always have that option in front of you. But you should definitely know which one is the correct one. But yeah, so you need not to um, remember everything. You just need to make sense out of what they are explaining you. Then the third tip will be my station is like we all are mostly working people, and then even if we are not working, we are busy with some other priorities. And this kind of fundamental certification or any certification is hard to attempt. I can understand. So the weightage is there for a purpose. That's why you focus on those modules and you can be a bit lenient with other modules. So focus on the weightages. And then my suggestion is when you're attempting your Microsoft learning path that I referred to in the beginning of presentation, do not skip. You have to, my suggestion is you should follow the learning path, because if you jump into module 3, okay, it might be having more weightage, but then you have skipped the module 2, which is kind of taking you forward with module 3. So module 3 will not make higher sense. That's the way, because they are interlinked. If you look at the path, the modules are not independent of each other. Yeah, some concept could be independent of each other, but as a whole, the whole learning path is a trailing path, which is like interlinked. There is no negative marking in the exam, so attempt all the questions, because you might have an answer being correct, which you might think that is incorrect. So you should attempt all the questions. So then I forgot to talk about the example question. So, talking about the focus on features, why? So, for example, the question is what SQL statement will be used by administrator to manage security permissions? So, the options they gave is DCL, DDL, DML. So, firstly, we need to know conceptually what is DCL, DDL, DML. If we know that, great. But then after that, we need to know about the feature of DCL. So the feature of DCL is like the permission that comes under DCL is grant, revoke, and deny. Because by the abbreviation, it says data control languages and what kind of statement comes under it. So then that's grant, revoke, and deny. So that's why I was saying, like, I mean, you need to know, uh, since it's not a Azure service, it's a data concept. So even if it's a concept, it's coming with some feature, like, I mean, what comes under these here. And then going to the second example, it tells you about the type of question. It's a yes and no. So there is a question like in relational database, all the values in column will have the same data type. The options is in yes and no. So it's quite easy. You need not to learn anything. You just need to know conceptually. So your answer will be yes. So you are not uh, having anything just to remember anything. You just know things from the logic. Yeah, so I think that's all for the day, and I hope my approach will help you. This is not any extraordinary approach. It's just like a kind of quite known. Like I would expect. Like I mean, if you have some experience in data or some experience in Azure, or maybe like you have appeared for any other exam, or definitely we must have followed this kind of approaches in our school or university. But yes, this is just kind of helping you out from from my experience of like how we should tackle it, and it will save time for you rather than just googling random things and then coming with lots of resources. So I wish you best of luck if you're planning to appear for exam or you have already scheduled the exam. So I hope this approach helps you. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shaifali. That was very interesting. Um, just for the people on board there, Chinton, thank you very much. You've actually put into the chat a little bit about the fundamentals virtual training days
Yeah.
and how it looks like that there's one actually coming up on there. So that's very useful in there as well. I was not aware actually that they existed. So that's very good to find out about actually, because that's it is great. Sometimes I find when you have to set aside a bit of time to study with these things, and sometimes then it's nice to have something that you can just follow along with. And if they're going to give you a voucher at the end as well, that sounds like a win-win. So that's a very good tip, but lots of great tips in there. So thank you very much. So that's it. That is it. If anyone has any questions, please pop it into the chat there just for a quick minute. Also, we would love to get your feedback. I have put a link in earlier. I'm going to repeat it there in the chat again because all speakers love getting feedback about their talk. It will there's only 3 questions inside in it, so if you can fill it out, give us a little bit of feedback, and we send it on to speakers. Greatly appreciate it. Other than that, thank you very much for attending, and our next session will be on in January. Have a great end of the year, and take care and mind yourself. Thank you again, Thank you again, Chef Ali, and we
Thank you
hope
so
to see
much,
you again.
Mark. Thank you. Yeah. Thank
No
you,
problem.
everyone.
No problem. Take care, Sloan. It's going to end the recording there now.